Hey, Devon Scott, where are you? Come on up while I tell people a little bit about you. He owns American Dream Cinema. I am told he is producer, director, and I am told he has a boatload of Emmys. Welcome, Devon Scott.
Having fun so far? All right, well, we'll make do. Unfortunately, Craig's not going to get the great intro that he deserves. I'm woefully unprepared. But I have known Craig for at least 15 years, and he's a wonderful, wonderful man. I met him when he was producing the post videos for KPBS, and doing the training over there, and I've never had the pleasure of working with him, but his reputation has preceded him throughout the industry. On a personal note, I've been to his house for dinner, so if that counts. He is an environmentalist. He got solar on his house, one of the first people I know to get solar, talked us into getting solar on our house, and it's awesome. He drives one of those electric cars, the Leaf, one of those things where he can only go like, 60 miles, but then, he's got to measure everything out, but it's awesome. The plumbing in his house is amazing. If you do the dishes in the sink, the water goes out and waters the roses. If you do the laundry, it goes out and waters the lawn. I'm sure if you flush the toilet, it does something too. I don't know. Yeah, I want to know what the toilet does. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy. So let me just read real quick his bio, because I just got this in a text here. So let me just. Can I borrow your reading glasses? I noticed you had a pair of.
I have extras.
You do? Oh, thank goodness. Well, yours are fancy. So.
Well, they're from Moscow.
Check this out. Thank you. Awesome. Oh, here we go.
Right color.
Perfect. My color. Oh, great. All right. Craig Bentley is president of Imageworks TV, a video production company he co-founded in San Diego in 1986. He received a film and television degree from San Diego State University, where he graduated with distinction in the major field. While at SDSU, he was chosen by the American Cinema editors as one of the top 3 student editors in the nation. I did not know that. That's impressive. In the 80s, Craig managed one of the first interactive video networks in the industry for a national home center chain. Since starting Imageworks, he has written, produced, and directed a wide variety of videos for clients such as Coca-Cola, Visa, and IBM. Industry recognitions include Emmys, Tellys, and Aurora and Communicator Awards. And also, if you've enjoyed the Emmy ceremonies for the last 3 years, he's produced that. So those are pretty awesome. Thank you, Craig, for stepping that up. In October 2013, Craig also became a senior producer director at UC San Diego, where he has helped design one of the largest video undertakings in campus history, helping economics faculty flip their classrooms by putting over 200 interactive lectures online, using new presentation technology and preserving valuable class time for discussions and problem solving. So obviously, Craig, maybe he's seen younger days, but he hasn't seen better days, and so it's my honor to introduce Craig Bentley.
What Devon didn't tell you was that Mike Kurtz, Mike was supposed to introduce me. He's the one that nominated you for this. And I found out when I got here that Mike had called in sick today. I called him on the phone. He sounded like he has the flu, very, very bad case of the flu. So I kept waiting for somebody else from my table to get here so I could ask them to introduce me instead. 10:15 comes, nobody. 10:30 comes, nobody. Finally, the first person is Devon, who rushes in with all the sound gear here, in his t-shirt and shorts, scrambling to try to get it to work, while he's still got to go change before the ceremony. And I say, and this is what karma will get you. I remember months ago, Devon had kind of bragged to me when he introduced his wife Jeannie when she was inducted, that he was a great introducer. So I said, Devon, you did kind of brag about that. So he graciously agreed with like 20 minutes to spare have to go and change and everything and try to get that together. So I thank Devon for that. And I had forgotten, he mentioned that America Cinema Editors Award that I was nominated for. 3 students in the nation. We all went up to the big ACE ball, you know, it's like a mini Oscars thing. And there was a guy from NYU, a guy from Montana State, strangely enough, and me from San Diego State, who were all nominated for the student editor. And what would be Murphy's Law? I mean, it would be bad, you know, if one of the other guys won or whatever. The other 2 guys tied for first, so I was the only one left sitting at the table, the only loser left sitting there at the table. Anyway, so this morning I had a few minutes. I was waiting for my pants to come out of the dryer, and I thought, you know, I should probably rehearse this little speech here. So I was rehearsing, and I was sitting there thinking, this is everyone's worst nightmare, to be giving a speech in your underwear. And then I was just glad. I thought, oh, I'm glad it's just the rehearsal, and I think I've got my pants on now, so I should be good to go. Growing up, I always loved movies and TV. I was a compulsive credit watcher, credit reader. In high school, I even had a letter to the editor published in the LA Times about the political ramifications of the TV series MASH. So I was always really interested in the media. But I never considered film or TV for a career. I went to college at Claremont McKenna as a pre-law major. And took a couple film classes there as electives and really liked them and thought, what the heck, I'll make the switch. They didn't have a film major, so I had to transfer. My best friend from high school, Jorge Castellanos, who some of you know, he was going to Cal State Fullerton and decided also to become a film and TV major, so we transferred down to San Diego State together. And we had several classmates, some of you know it, back in the 70s. Roger Ambrose, Bob Sloan, Bill Holshadnikoff, and Wayne Brubaker, who I realized this morning that I think I've known you longer than anybody else in the room. Going back to those San Diego State days. And
I'm still here.
And I was the typical film snob. I always told people that my major was film, my minor was learning as little about video as possible. And that's another case of karma, because since I've left state, I think I've worked on all of 2 projects where film was actually what was used. So our senior project at San Diego State, Jorge and I and one other student, Professor Roy Manson said, this would be your calling card into the industry, shoot for the moon. So we did just that. We undertook this 40-minute science fiction epic. This was shortly after Star Wars had come out. 1984 was my favorite one. And so we went full bore, laser guns, every kind of special effect you can imagine. It took us a year just to shoot it, and then post-production just stalled out altogether. But we'll get back to that in a minute. While I was at State, I interned at Handyman. How many remember the hardware store chain called Handyman? That's when you know you've got roots here in San Diego. Although they were actually in five different states, and we did point-of-sale videos there and employee training videos. We had one of the first random access controllers in the nation. Back in '79, we could access each 60 different segments on a Betamax tape through this random access controller, and that was 10 or 15 years before DVDs, so that was very advanced at the time. When I finished classes at State, I embarked on a freelance career. I was PAing for Terry Ringy, if anybody remembers him. I did a lot of gripping for Roger Henderson, and I did a lot of freelancing for Handyman as well. And it was during that period that the McCurdy rule came about. Most of you probably know Jim McCurdy, Toby, Kathy's husband. So he came up with this rule because I must have been on a shoot with him where I was gripping for him one day, and then shortly thereafter I was directing a Handyman piece where he was on the crew and I was telling him what to do. And that's when he decided, always be nice to the grips, because tomorrow they could be your boss. He never fails to bring that up when we get together at parties. Ended up being hired by Handyman ended up being the manager of video services eventually. Brought Jorge on board to help me, and that's where we met Jeannie Scott. She worked at Voice and Video right around the corner from Handyman, and that was a very handy place for us to do some of our video work. And I owe Wayne some thanks there too, I think, because after Voice and Video she went to work for Wayne, And that's how I met Devon, and without that connection, I don't know, now we're great friends, and I don't know if that would have come about without that, so thank you again, Wayne. In 1986, Handyman decided to go out of business, and their slogan at the time had been, ahead of the rest by being the best, and we quickly decided the new slogan was, ahead of the best by being put to rest. So for some reason, Jorge and I decided that it would be much easier to just start our own production company than having to find a new staff job somewhere. Now realizing that having a production company meant essentially finding a new job every couple of weeks. So that was a struggle, but we got pretty lucky early on, and we got hired for 2 or 3 months working on dealer footage for Chrysler. And so back then we were living pretty lean and mean, and from the money from that job gave us 2 or 3 months where we didn't have to take work. So we thought, this is the time, 9 years later, to go back and finish our senior project film at State. So we actually edited that at Poison Video and finished it off. It was during that time that I met my lovely wife, Peggy, and it was actually at the premiere party for The Rebel, that was our senior project film. After the party, we were cleaning up, and I told Jorge that I planned to propose to her on Valentine's Day. So Valentine's Day came along. Jorge and Ralph Cheney and I were doing a shoot at Coca-Cola Bottling right by Channel 10. And my wife taught in Southeast San Diego, right across the 94 from there. So at lunchtime, I got in my VW van, changed into my suit, went to her school, went in her classroom, and proposed in front of all her kids. When I came back out, changed clothes again, drove back to Coca-Cola, and shot for the rest of the day. And that was 25 years ago, and I thank her for sticking with me through all of that. So fortunately, Roy Madsen was still alive, and we were able to get a grade for our senior project film and clear up that incomplete, which at the time my counselor told me 9 years was a record, that the longest an incomplete had ever sat there and been actually turned into a grade. About 15 years after that, I found out that my good friend Bill Volshevnikov got to know Mike really at State and convinced him to give him a grade. So I think he now holds the record, like 25 years after his incomplete, he got his degree. So back to Imageworks. We plodded along. In '91, Jorge decided to move to the Bay Area, so I bought him out. And then just forged ahead for the next 20 years, usually, well, always with at least 1 or maybe 2 employees. And there's just a bit of trivia about Imageworks employees. A lot of you know Don Sinatra from his time at KPBS. Where are the KPBS? There's the KPBS, folks. He worked at Imageworks for a while, and I just saw on Facebook, he had his bachelor party last week, which I'm guessing maybe he was married yesterday, I don't know. But there were 9 employees at Imageworks over the years who were dating someone when I hired them, and all 9 ended up marrying those people eventually. And as far as I know, all 9 are still married, so maybe Imageworks was in the wrong business or something. I don't know. But I want to thank KPBS from Mary Ellen when she was there, and Ina and Don Johnson. From 1990 until just a few years back, they were one of our main clients, and they really helped us weather the storm in San Diego, which is a challenge for any production company. He's not here, but I want to thank Matthew Eisen. He's the one that originally referred us to KPBS, and that ended up being a huge step for us. I want to thank Kenyon Blower. I edited many times at VidaPost over the years, and always enjoyed it. The challenging thing was that usually I would budget, a certain amount of time for post-production, say it was 8 hours, and then sure enough, 12 hours later, we'd still be sitting there finishing up, and Kenyon would hang in there with me, and I'd be really nervous about how far over budget I was, and at that point, Kenyon would say, so let's see, 12 hours, we probably had about 3.5 hours of downtime, so I'll just bill you for 8.5 hours. And suddenly I'd be back on budget miraculously, so thank you, Kenyon, for that. I want to thank Sherry Lou for mentoring our daughter Faith through her high school internship at NBC7. He's not. I want to thank Reagan Matthews. After the Post account left KPBS, and went to Digital Outpost, and Reagan helped out marvelously there over the years. I want to thank Kevin Testato. He's not here, but he brought me on board the Monopoly documentary that just won us a few Emmys a couple months ago. And I also want to thank our investors, some of whom are in the room here. That was just a great adventure, and I'm very thankful for being part of that. Mostly I want to thank NATAS. This is truly one of the great honors of my life. Thanks to anyone I left out. It's been a great ride. I can't wait to see where it goes next.